Today I'm going to be talking about the three types of accounts you can open up for your kids, grandkids, basically family members or minors, etc. Historically, there have only been two accounts, the UTMA or UGMA, the Unified Transfer to Minors Act and the Unified Gift to Minors Act. Those act pretty much the same way. State regulations have them set up a little bit differently. With the 529, which is a state-ran educational account, and then the newly established Trump accounts. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the three types of accounts, how they work, the benefits of them, and ultimately break down what I think typically makes the most sense. Now, as a financial planner, it has to be done correctly over the course of time, but it can definitely save you in a lot of different avenues pursuing this route if done correctly. So let's dive in. The first one we're going to talk about is the UTMAs, custodial accounts. How those essentially work is they are just an individual brokerage account or advisory account that is opened up under the child's social security number. The parent or guardian is the custodian owner, and they have control of that money, assets, trades, etc. until the child reaches the age of majority. Each state has that different. Here in Iowa, where I'm located, that is 21. And I know some states are 19, 20, 18. They all just kind of vary per state. How those work is there's no limits on contributions. There's no limits on what you can invest in as long as it meets the criteria of the investment objective of the client. When the minor reaches the age of majority in the state, the custodian can sign over the account directly to the minor. It now becomes theirs. The custodian has no more say in what to do with the account. Those can be used for anything. They can be used for college. They can be used for buying a first home, buying a car, investing in a business, etc. There's no limitations on what that money can be used on. When you do take distributions out of those accounts, they are taxed at roughly the capital gains rate. If the child is still a minor and still falls under the parent's tax return as a dependent, there are some other ways that that's taxed, and I'll dive into that here shortly. The second one is the 529. And the 529 works is contributions that are made into the account are tax deductible at the state level. Here in Iowa, they have to be opened up at the Advisor 529 website through the state, and there's a list of funds that you can pick from and invest at whatever risk level you're comfortable with. There's a maximum amount that you can contribute into those per year that you get the state tax deduction. Now, you can contribute more, but you just don't get the state tax deduction. Now, the account grows tax-free, and the distributions are tax-free as long as they are used for qualified education expenses. Those typically are in the form of tuition, room and board, books, anything related to education. Those would qualify for expenses to be tax-free. Now, if you take distributions out of the account, you would pay income tax on the entire amount that was distributed, plus a 10% penalty on any gains on the investment amount. So if your child decides to now use that for education, you do have a $36,000 lifetime exemption to convert those to Roth. But anything beyond that $36,000, you would be subject to pay taxes and penalties on the balance. Now, the third account is the Trump account. This is more designed as a long-term investment. Any child is eligible to open up the account. Only children born from 2025 to, I believe, 2029 are subject to get the free $1,000 initial contribution into the account. So I have a child born in 24. She is not eligible for the $1,000, but my son, who was born in 25, he is eligible for that free $1,000, which we are going to take advantage of. Now, Trump accounts, you can contribute to them as well. An individual who contributes to them, they get a deduction on their federal taxes. Businesses can also contribute to Trump accounts, and they also get a deduction on their federal taxes as well. The difference is these are designed for long-term investments. They are not designed for education. There's no tax benefits for that. Any distributions prior to 59.5, which is the current law, they are subject to income tax and penalties. To make it easy, the best way to kind of look at this would be to think of this as just a traditional IRA. Now, the contributions and taxes of it are different, because if you exceed the annual amount that can be contributed into these that is subject to a tax deduction, anything over that would then be an after-tax basis, which is taxed differently on the way out. I'm not going to sit here and confuse you, but essentially try and think of them just like an IRA, just for easy terms. So we kind of broke down the 3 types of accounts. Here we have a visual, and you can take a peek here and kind of see what is kind of the difference between the 3 of these and which one is going to be better for you and your child. So we'll start with the 529 plan here. The parent or guardian maintains control of the account. They can change the beneficiary. If there's other kids, grandkids, they can ultimately change them an unlimited number of times. Ultimately, the biggest thing about this that I see are the risks of being trapped into this account. Mom, dad, both grandma and grandpas, aunts, uncles, if you got all sorts of people contributing into one 529 for one child, or an accumulated balance alongside market growth, things like that, that $36,000 lifetime Roth conversion, you may exceed that dollar amount. So what do you do with the rest? Pay taxes and penalties? If your child doesn't decide to go to school or gets a scholarship, gets a free ride, there's a lot of scenarios where this money may not be used. Now the tax deduction you got with the money going in, and you're paying more taxes coming out. The idea behind it is for education, is to encourage kids to pursue more education in their life, and that does serve a purpose. But when you talk about the finances of it and breaking down what's going to make the most sense, I kind of like to lean a different route. Let's jump over here to the right where we see the new Trump account. Like I said earlier, this is more of a long-term savings plan. And you can see here, there's not a lot of information out about these Trump accounts. There's a lot of things towards the bottom here: control of the account, flexibility, impact of overfunding. A lot of these things haven't really came about yet because we haven't ran into them. So I think if you have a child or a grandchild over the next couple of years, definitely take advantage of the free $1,000. But until we know more on how these accounts actually work, we need to be cautious on how much money we're putting into them. So the custodial account, this is what I think is the most beneficial for at least myself, what I'm doing for my kids, alongside other clients and other people I work with as well. This can be managed in a lot better fashion, and you can essentially make these tax-free if done correctly. You don't have to worry about any sort of after-tax dollars if you overfund it. There is no tax deduction on the front end for either state or federal or anything, because it's taxed on the way out. Where I've been talking about the management of this is where we come to the kiddie tax laws. Now, I'm not a tax expert. I can't give tax advice. I'm just simply stating facts on how these work. How the kiddie tax works: the first $1,350 is tax-free. That's either long-term, short-term capital gains, income, dividends, interest, all that stuff, tax-free. The next $1,350 is at the child's effective tax rate, which, if they're a minor or if they're the ages between 18 and 23 and still on their parents, probably going to be 10%. Now, where it can get a little bit dicey is anything over the $2,700, where it's going to be taxed at the parent's effective income rate if they are under the age of 18 or over 18, but still, let's say, as a dependent on their parents' taxes. But what we could do every single year is capture some of those capital gains, capture some of those growth. But with these, we can manage it correctly to sell some investments when they're up, capture some gains because the first portion of it's tax-free, the next portion of it is taxed at a lower rate. Depending on what the parent's income tax rate is, we may want to avoid selling beyond that dollar amount and capturing some of those gains. But effectively, we can avoid a chunk of taxes every year. But big picture is when the child is no longer a dependent, they're done with college, they're working full time, it would then fall into the capital gains rate. So every year you can fill up the 0% bucket after the fact. If they're high income earners, then that may not be an option. But that bracket is also 15%, which is going to be less than what a income tax bracket would be if you had a 529 and didn't use it for educational expenses. It would be less than if you had your Trump account and took your distributions before 59 and a half and had to pay income taxes and penalties on that. Most of the time, the capital gains rate is going to be less than what the income tax rate is. And especially if done correctly, year after year, you can essentially, make these close to as tax-free as possible. So you may be thinking, am I going to recommend this for everyone? No, everyone's situation is different. And that's why working with a financial planner like myself is always worth exploring those options, where someone may want to use the Trump account versus the 529 or even the custodial account, is if they are required to take some sort of distribution for a couple of years, beneficiary IRA, they're in some sort of business buyout agreement, things like that. But that's why it's always important. Work with a CPA, work with a financial planner like myself, and see which account makes the most sense for you. So I'd be happy to walk you through what options are, what's going to make the most sense for your current situation, and we can start saving for your kids, grandkids, or anyone else today. So thanks for tuning in.
If you'd like to learn more, you can go to my website, financialplanningwitheddie.com. You can also schedule your free initial consultation with me on the scheduling link. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Financial Planning with Eddie.